So this one's the Goblet of Fire. This one, he starts off with the Weasleys. They go to the festival, and then the festival turns into the Death Eater reunion, and then they go back to school, and the tri-state champions,
the Triwizard Tournament.
Triwizard Tournament. Did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire? And the new dark arts teacher, which I don't remember his name. Brunch. Is it Bunch? Is it?
The new dark arts teacher. Oh gosh, it just completely slipped my mind. Mad Eye Moody.
Okay, Mad Eye.
Crouch or whatever. That was the real person.
But then who is the so Mad Eye Moody, and then who was the head of like the board that his.
Yes. Okay. So there was the head of the board, and then there was
which is funny because 2 different Robert Pattinson movies featured heads of the boards. One just got broken.
By the way, we're recording right now. We've been recording the past minute and a half. Oh. It's a good cold open. I like that.
What is the name of the head of the board of magic?
Oh gosh, I don't have my phone. I want to say it was okay. I think it was like Bartley Crouch or something like that.
We'll just go with generalities.
Yeah, and then but also remember David Tennant's character has the same name as him, but he's junior. But we can just call him David Tennant. It's fine. People will know what we're talking about if they see the movie. How are you, Will? We're back on the podcast.
I just kind of appeared here.
Like magic? Did you use a port key?
Maybe I should go to a port and just get on a boat and go find Hogwarts.
Yeah. I mean, supposedly you can get there by boat. You can get there anyway.
You can get there by carriage. You can get there by Pegasus. You can get there by...
walking.
That boat broke me. We'll get there. That route broke me as a person trying to gather information about this universe. Is like, we'll get to it, but we're trying to figure out how hidden is Hogwarts. And in the first movie, it's like, oh, you have to take a train there, and this path to the train is secret, and then you go from the train into some boats, and then you get there. And you're like, okay, it's obviously secret, it's hidden. And then you can get there by flying car. You can get there by buggy. You can get there by magical Pegasus. And then somebody literally walks there in this movie. They walk from the festival all the way to Hogwarts, and then they just walk right in. And I'm like, what's preventing muggles from seeing this place? Is there anything? Because they've not said, oh, this place is veiled from the world of the muggles. Okay, sorry. We're back.
Sorry, I had to take a little break. Yeah, so that's a good point. Before we go too much into it, I'll get back into the intro. I kind of tricked Will into doing a cold open, but I'm Hannah. That's Will. We are with Metamorphic Site Productions, and this is Two Christians Watch, and we are in the middle, the smack dab in the middle of the Harry Potter series. Well, we are in the 4th movie out of 8. This is the first time either of us have watched these films at all. Well, I've seen this movie, and I've seen the first one a couple times. Not all the way through, though. I didn't know what the story was. Now I know, but... that's the premise of this era of this podcast, this little series. We're also, so as the title says, we're Two Christians Watch. We take in film and we analyze it and react to it through a Christian perspective. We've been trying to do that with these movies. Mostly we've just been marveling at Harry Potter and like how the universe works, really. It's a little different than what we normally do. Maybe we'll try to rein it in a little bit on this one. I doubt it. We have so much written down that's just about like what is going on, but yeah.
We try to get a moral at the end and talk about how it's proper, improper, application-wise into a Christian's life. We did really well with the first two. Third one didn't really have a moral. We kind of had to dig for it. Guess what? This one's not much better.
It has a very key line and moment that I'm going to talk about. I don't know if you know which one it's going to be, but
is it where Dumbledore talks about the power of love again? Because he talks about this one and this.
Dumbledore. It's not Dumbledore. It's Voldemort. Actually, says the line.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Voldemort. He's back, everyone. Back in the atmosphere. He's back. The one who shall not be named.
And then they name it multiple times in these movies. Yeah. See, whenever I was growing up and everyone was like, oh, he who should not be named. And I pieced it together, who it was and what movie it's from. I'm like, okay, I've never seen the movies, but I'm guessing that this this is a character who is hidden, who's secret, who's a threat, who's doing bad things, but nobody's allowed to say his name because of some kind of thing.
Like a curse, a spell.
Like you say it and he's Beetlejuicing his way there.
Yeah, don't say it's cursed. Like he could.
They say it in the first movie. They say it multiple times and there's no threat except that it's like, oh, if you say it, then people are going to remember that he exists. And I'm like, people know. It's only been, 50 years?
Yeah, and obviously, well, not even that, because the last time he was seen was when Harry was a baby. So
it's only been 13
years.
So
yeah.
In everybody's lifetime, this person's existed. And so it's silly. Sorry.
It's fine. We really need to summarize the movie. That's your lovely job, Will. I know you're about to take a sip of your hot cocoa, or butterbeer if we could.
No, it's hot cocoa. I do not want to immerse myself financially into this universe.
You want to get some butterbeer down the old hatch.
I'd rather have blue milk from Star Wars. I'd rather try that.
Is that the milk that comes out of that weird character or creature that's on the island that Luke is on?
Yes, but Luke has blue milk in the first movie, A New Hope. So
is it the same thing when he milks that weird creature?
I think so.
Okay, so you'd rather do that, have that instead of butterbeer.
Give any money to this franchise.
Okay.
So I am the king of summaries. I remember most things that are important to a film to actually get its story across. Last time was really difficult because none of it made any sense. This time, things kind of make sense, at least enough to piece together a plot. And we're back at it again. And guess what, guys? This time we don't start off at Harry's guardian's household. We don't watch him get verbally abused by a bunch of middle-aged people. He starts off hanging out with his friends, the Weasleys.
I think he lives with them now.
Probably. But we're jumping to a little bit of a conclusion there. He's with the Weasleys. They're going to a tournament for Quidditch. It looks like an international tournament is meeting in some arena, which is kind of being run by the people at Hogwarts. And so they're going to it. It's outside of the tournament is the ultimate tailgating experience mixed with the fire festival. It's insane. People are dancing, people are singing, people have tents up, they're cooking things. So the whole three gangs there, Hermione, Ron, Harry, and the Weasleys are all hanging out. They run into your boy, Robert Pattinson, and his
dad, the Diggorys.
The Diggories, which I'll take a brief aside. If you've read any of the Chronicles of Narnia, Professor Diggory is an important character in the Chronicles of Narnia. He is pivotal in the first two books and in the last book. So it's kind of weird that they have a character named after that, but we'll get there. We'll not get there, but just note that in your brain somewhere. Anyway, they run into this family that they know and they're all chummy with. They go to the tournament and it's going great. They go to take a nice nap afterwards and they have to evacuate. They wake up having to evacuate because the festival is under attack by Voldemort's cult, the Death Eaters, and they are setting things afire. They're killing people.
Oh, the dream.
What dream?
The very beginning, Harry has the dream.
What? Oh, yeah. No, that one's not a dream. That one is showing what really happens. Harry later on has a dream about it as if he was the groundskeeper.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I forgot about the cold open, which features this creepy old mansion and this groundskeeper nearby who's looking up. He's like, well, that's weird. Everything should be off in there. There should be no light. He goes up to inspect. He sees a room with three figures, Peter Pettigrew, David Tennant, and
we don't know his name. Sorry.
No, they mention it very briefly a couple times, and a mysterious voice that we find out is Voldemort, who is trying to become formed again. He's trying to get a body again, and so he says to his cronies, these two guys, "Hey, send out my followers. We're gonna start this whole thing up again. We're gonna reignite the Voldemort train." And they find out that the groundskeeper heard them, and they eliminate the groundskeeper. Later on in the movie, he's having visions that he's the groundskeeper and he's seeing this live and he gets to hear the conversation. It's yet to be revealed why or how he can do this, but he totally can have these dreams. Back to reality. Harry wakes up at the festival and he's trying to figure out what's happened because he wakes up after the attack pretty much. Oh, he gets knocked out.
Yeah, which happens every single movie.
He gets knocked out. He gets knocked down. He's whatever. He gets knocked out again. Wakes up. Everything's smoldering and then David Tennant's there. And luckily Harry's saved by a group of wizards and they take them all off to Hogwarts. Once they get to Hogwarts, it's announced it is time for the Tri-Wizard Tournament, which they've only just announced in this fourth movie, where champions from each school will be able to compete to become be known as one of the greatest wizards of all time. They have to be 17 or older to compete, and they must put their name into the Goblet of Fire to be chosen at random to be a competitor in this tournament. These are not versus each other in the sense of combat as much as it's going to be competition of their wit, their ability, and their ability to adapt to circumstances.
Kind of like Survivor.
Mixed with Hunger Games.
Yeah. Well, so in Hunger Games, they have to kill each other.
Right, but there's going to be tasks in Hunger Games where they have to do to survive. And so, but they really emphasize that you can die in this game. You can maim yourself, you can become permanently damaged or worse. And so these two schools from around the world come to Hogwarts, and Hogwarts hosts them for the duration of the school year.
Yeah, it was like the whole school year. I didn't get that.
One was from France, and one was possibly from Russia. They don't really specify, but their actions, their clothes, their accent,
their Rasputin teacher.
Yeah, it's if it's not Russia, it's Eastern European. All come to this school to compete. One is chosen from each group, and then representing Hogwarts is Robert Pattinson, which is I forget his Cedric.
Cedric is his first name.
Cedric Diggory. And then so it's only supposed to be 3. So obviously tri-wizard, 1 wizard from each school. And as they're celebrating the 3 people chosen, all of a sudden the Goblet of Fire spits out another name, and it's Harry Potter, which is confusing for many reasons, but that the Goblet chose a 4th for the tri-wizard tournament. So all the teachers are freaking out because Harry is 13 years old. He is a child. He has not had enough experience to compete. Also, they just had the incident where somebody was trying to murder him. So it's kind of hard to keep track of this kid at this point, and the teachers can't protect him to save his life. But Harry is forced to be in this tournament, and there's a new dark arts teacher, Mad Eye Moody, and he has one tech eye which can like scan people, and he is a ex-bounty hunter of the Death Eaters?
Yeah, just bad wizards, but he mostly went after Death Eaters is implied.
Right, so he would hunt them, and he's got one working leg and one tech leg and one mechanical leg, and he's all gruff. He's finally actually teaching the students how to defend themselves. He's teaching them how to be combatants and to fight because the threats are getting real. And so Harry goes through these trials, he goes through these games, he's doing pretty well for himself, and he's still having these dreams. Meanwhile, you occasionally see the Professor Moody drinking this random drink, and it kind of looks like it's alcohol. It's made to look like it's alcohol, but Severus Snape is like, things are missing from my storehouse of potions and brews and ingredients. And so he's trying to be on the investigation for the 4th movie in the row. He's trying to solve another thing in the background. And so all this is happening. They get to the final game, and all 4 of them are facing off against each other. The winner is supposed to get glory and recognition as one of the greatest wizards of all time. And as Harry is trying to win, he pretty much has to team up with Cedric, and then he and Cedric touch the trophy at the very end. But instead of the trophy being like, oh, you win, everybody's happy, the trophy teleports them to a graveyard where they watch the resurrection of Voldemort, and Harry's blood is infused with Voldemort's. They draw from Harry's blood, they draw from the hand of Pettigrew, and they take the body of Voldemort, who's like a shriveled little hairless cat. They throw it all into a pot. And
I just want to say the grossest thing I've seen in these movies thus far was this whole sequence. Anyway, continue.
He looks like a wet, hairless cat. And out pops Voldemort. Voldemort kills Cedric, so Cedric dies so he can rise again in Twilight. And Harry has his first face-off with Voldemort. Voldemort, threatens to kill him. He's planning on killing him. Harry's able to get away briefly to actually spar with him. They both launch spells at the same time. Their beams hit each other, very Ghostbusters-like. Then Harry is visited by the ghosts of his parents and Cedric, who tell that they're going to ghost attack Voldemort so that Harry can get away. So they attack Voldemort. Harry ditches the fight. He grabs the body of Cedric, grabs the trophy, and the trophy finally takes them back to the arena to his teachers, and he informs the teachers, hey, guess what? Voldemort's back. Couldn't prevent this. Now he's out to get me. He's out to get us.
Cedric's dead.
Cedric is dead.
Everyone's cheering and they don't realize right away that he's dead.
And then they have a brief funeral service for Cedric, and then everybody leaves smiling and happy. That's pretty much it. I left out anything that was useless. The dance.
Okay, Yule Ball happens. And it's kind of important because we're going to talk about Ron, and that was a huge point in Ron's.
Yeah, it was a huge point in the movie, but it was a useless point in the movie. We are getting to the crux of this arc with Voldemort and these attackers who are dark wizards, and we're like, let's see what it's like to be a teenager at Hogwarts, and let's be silly, and let's go on dates, and let's be angsty. And it's like, no, listen, these kids need to learn how to fight. These kids need to learn how to defend themselves. They have not learned. They had an instance when the Lockhart was at the school, and they were supposed to be learning defense spells. That went zero. They went nowhere. They didn't learn how to defend themselves.
Lupin taught them. Remember with the boggart, with the thing that could take the shape of your fear? He did teach them some stuff.
He taught them. It taught it to turn into something silly,
yeah,
but not like to defend themselves against the bad attacks, like not like a form of shield or anything. So these kids are defenseless when a threat comes, and they know the greatest threat they've seen in 13 years is coming for them. These kids are helpless, including Harry, who barely survives everything he touches.
Hey, he's the chosen one. He's got the special. Okay, so we have a longer runtime now, longer than last movie. Will said that he felt that the plot, and it was just, if the flow of the plot was very jumbled and there was not enough significance for the plot points. Do you want to talk about that at all? Because I know you just went over the summary, but you were like, it just felt, so it was a point with you this time.
It was easier for me to summarize it because I just hit on the points that was actually important. It was, honestly, I could probably give it a 5 to 6 bullet point thing on an outline in front of a thesis paper, and that would be all you need to know about this film. There's a lot of repeating. They do the same intro scene and as a dream about 3 or 4 times. There's a lot of panicky scenes where the teacher's like, oh, how's Harry going to get ready for this? And then Harry's like, I don't know how I'm going to get ready for this. And Harry stumbles into getting ready for these tournament games.
It was all a mastermind plan, though.
There's a lot of wasted time between Ron and Harry and these silly conversations that Hannah's going to get into.
Yeah, it's the next thing, the next big thing that we had to suffer through.
They spend so much time on Ron and Harry and Hermione having these angsty conversations. That takes up 30 minutes of the runtime. And then you spend 15 minutes with this ball and everybody trying to find a date. So that's 30 to 45 minutes is just wasted space in this movie that's 2 hours and 45 minutes long. And for all the buildup and the reveal that Lucius Malfoy is working directly with Voldemort and is his lackey, great. That's a great pivotal reveal, but it takes so long to get there. And you have to go through all these tournament games and you have to watch him laboriously go through all these hoops and have these. And basically, this movie franchise is slowly becoming Harry has an individual conversation with a character. That is it. It's scene 1. Harry enters hall. Harry finds teacher. Harry has a 10 to 15 minute conversation with teacher that goes nowhere. Harry leaves. Hermione comes up with a plan.
Hermione makes the plot happen.
Right. And then Harry goes to another person and has a conversation and then leaves and then does the same thing. And then Quidditch or some kind of weird action sequence that feels forced. And then they go to the next thing and Harry goes up to a teacher and has a conversation. It's very rarely does it it flow any different, especially this movie where the plot advances with Harry having one-on-one conversations with people.
Do you think that Hermione should have been the main character?
I think it would have been controversial in the sense of there's not a lot of fictional stories that have a female lead, but I think that it would have benefited a lot better because she's spunky and she's level-headed, but at the same time she's not always right and she's not always making the best decisions, and I think that would have made for a better story to watch her learn that she doesn't always have the answers, but to learn to go to people who do, learn from her mistakes. Way more interesting than everybody knows this character who is supposed to be the magical chosen one who he doesn't know what he's doing half the time.
Yeah. So Ron's toxic teenage boy puberty moment in the whole film. So in the beginning of the film, Ron, you're shaking your head. Ron's obsessed with Victor Crumb, who I thought was an adult. I thought he was not in school. I thought he was a professional athlete when we first were introduced to him.
So the tournament we see, it makes it look like if you go to the World Cup and you see teams for each country, and this is a Quidditch tournament, and it's like, oh, this team is from France and this team is from Ireland. You're like, oh, so this, if you want to do well, if you want to go beyond the school and you want to take your Quidditch skills to the professional level, this is what it looks like. And then that team comes to the school and is like, oh yeah, actually we're students. And you're like,
yeah. So in the beginning, Ron is obsessed with Victor Crumb because he's like this great Quidditch player, and he like a boy is obsessed with like an athlete, he's like a big fan. The Triwizard tournament happens, and Victor Crumb shows up, and so obviously like Ron is starstruck. And then Dumbledore's like, hey, I can't remember why it wasn't safe or what the whole point of, like, he said, oh, we're only going to do a certain age limit for this. I can't remember the reasoning behind that, but Dumbledore puts the 17 years or older age limit on it. And so of course Ron's like, oh, sad, I don't get to try for it, but whatever, because they're 14 at this point. So everything happens, they put their name in the Goblet of Fire and everything like that, and then Harry's name magically comes out of the cup, which we've already established in between that time that it was heavily hexed or whatever it was to keep anyone under 17 out. So it's obvious at this point that someone else put Harry's name in the cup. And also, I don't know how they were able to manipulate it for it to choose another champion after Cedric, but they did. Ron, in his not fully developed brain, somehow is like, oh, Harry must have done this on purpose and he didn't tell me about it, and now he's going to be with Victor Crumb and this whole thing. And he just gets so, like, I try to think of I don't want to use a curse word.
He gets worked up and he gets peeved about it.
Passive aggressive.
He won't talk to Harry. He makes fun of Harry. He calls him names. He sends people to talk to Harry for him. But backtracking just a second, because I know you're in the middle of this, but I really want to emphasize how ridiculous this plot point is with the Goblet of Fire. Okay, first off, this is a Triwizard tournament. 3. It doesn't make sense. So this Goblet of Fire they establish is not sentient, but close enough, because it knows not to choose a certain group of age group. It knows to lock certain people out, and it chooses randomly, but it knows to choose 3. They said it's chosen 3 every single time,
and also 3 from each different school, not 3 from like the same school.
Right. It knows to choose 3 different people from 3 different schools, and this time it chooses a 4th one that's under the age limit. But also, the thing that really drives me nuts, and I shared this with you while we were watching it, it's called the Triwizard Tournament, and the people who put their name in and get chosen are the Triwizard champions. Champions of what? They do not have to compete beforehand. They don't have to compete in their classes or at their schools, and the winner of that puts their name in a tournament, or puts that. It is literally anybody who's at your school who's 17 or older can put their name in the goblet, and it will choose it, and you're now the champion of the school. You didn't win anything. It's not even, you don't even know if it's based on skill. Cedric could have just shipped up there and got moved into the school and this is my first day here, I've been around the nation a little bit, I want to just go ahead and put my name in. Gets chosen. He has no clue what he's doing. There's no, you didn't earn your way there. You didn't compete against the best in your class or the best in your house to get there. It's just the goblet shows you randomly, and now you're a champion, and you're the champion representing your school.
Yeah,
that's literally like if a public high school was competing in a tournament with 2 other public high schools, and it says, oh, only seniors can put their names in, and whatever name will get drawn randomly from the seniors will represent your school against 2 other schools in unspecified challenges that will be athletic, that will be mental, emotional challenges. You don't know. It literally could choose the randomest kid in your school to represent the whole thing. There's no logic behind the choices in this, except for it's convenient because that's why they were able to choose Harry.
Yeah. So obviously, go
back to the Ron.
Yeah. Well, Mad Eye Moody, who ends up being David Tennant, we find out he was actually drinking Polyjuice Potion the whole time, not alcohol, and he trapped the other guy in a secret dungeon.
Let me elaborate on that, just for people who may have no clue what we're talking about. The Mad Eye Moody who we saw drinking, the Mad Eye Moody who was training the students, was actually David Tennant's Death Eater character in disguise. He was taking a potion to turn himself into Mad Eye Moody, and the real Mad Eye Moody was locked in a chest against his will so that David Tennant could basically find a way to get Harry to meet up with Voldemort.
Right, and he's the one who put Harry's name in the Goblet of Fire, but somehow he got the goblet to spit it out, which is I don't know how he did that. So anyway, this happens with Ron, right? Ron reacts to this Harry obviously lied. Instead of having a conversation, he just assumes that Harry did this, and we have gone through 3 movies where things just happened to Harry. I don't know why Ron didn't catch on to that, to be like, hey, this is probably probably a scheme from Voldemort, because everything that happens to you like this is a scheme from Voldemort. But instead, he gets very angry and passive aggressive about it. And then the Yule Ball comes up, and they're like, I have to get a date. I have to get a date. I have to get a date. And in his mind, it's like, I have to get a date to prove myself, and not like, oh, this is supposed to be a nice dance. Like, this is supposed to be a social event. He puts way too much expectation on this whole thing of getting a date. Secretly, he is kind of fiddling with these feelings he has for Hermione. Hermione gets asked out by Victor Crumb, which now the guy that he idolized is like going after his girl. Ron just has a pity party the whole time where he's like, life sucks, everything's horrible, and he kind of comes off as entitled, but he really hurts Hermione at the Yule Ball.
That's not the only person he hurts.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Ron and Harry end up going to the ball with these twin girls, and they completely blow them off. They completely ignore them. They don't dance with them hardly at all. And the girls are like trying to get them to talk to them, to hang out, and they are just having their own pity party. And so the two guys ignore the girls and give them the worst night possible. And then Ron goes up to Hermione and like makes fun of her for being with
Victor Crumb, and he insinuates that like Victor Crumb only wants her for one thing and one thing only. She starts crying. He's just horrible to her. And it's like, goodness, why is this movie just like these friends falling apart? And I get it. They're teenagers and they're doing dumb stuff and they're saying dumb things to each other. And by the end of the movie, their friendship still lasts through it, which is great. Maybe I'm just getting too mad for no reason. You're just like, no.
There's no justification for it except for an additional side plot. These movies, for some bizarre reason, insist on having A, B, C, and D plots, and forcing A plot and C plot to tie in together, while B plot and D plot are like, it's a thing and we need it to function. But they don't realize that you could just give us two plots, one main plot, one side plot, and have the side plot have effects on the main plot. That is the traditional modern movie plot system, instead of forcing a bunch of different dialogue options and relationship breakdown just for the sake of runtime and drama.
I know a lot of fans argue if it was smart or wise for Rowling to make Ron and Hermione like romantically involved with each other or interested. We've gotten hints throughout that Ron has a crush on her as time goes on, and especially now it's kind of come to light. They think that doesn't make sense with their characters. They kind of feel like Hermione should have been with someone else. It's what I believe. What do you think? Do you have any?
This is definitely should have been the movie, the saga where the three main characters aren't romantically involved ever, that they just become best buddies, because they're going through trauma together. They're going through danger and death and sorrow. They don't need to be romantically involved to be emotionally strongly linked.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that would have been a really good decision to be like, they all find love interests outside of the group, but they're just friends with each other, best friends. I think that would have been something like platonic love, brother and sisterly love can exist that is not specifically romantic.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think that should be seen more often in cinema and in fiction. There's a big movement to just, if they're two people, they have to be together at some point. And I just think it's almost always forced. It's very rarely is it natural. And in this case, it just feels like, I'm a boy, you're a girl, we're both in class together, let's be romantically drawn to each other.
Yeah, because, if Ron and Hermione become romantically involved, that automatically shifts the friendship dynamic. I don't want to spoil the end unless you don't care about that.
I've got 4 movies to go, so let's just don't spoil it right now.
Yeah. So we're talking about the Triwizard Tournament also, because we've never heard of this before. Maybe we missed the part where they were explaining it, but I was like, why has this never come up? Is it an annual thing? Does it only happen every couple years?
I think it's every couple of years, but you would think that they would talk about it, especially with freshmen.
Yeah, and so they said that only this year they're doing the age thing. So they could allow like first years, I guess, in the past to enter this.
Oh boy, could you imagine freshmen, 12, 13-year-olds running around trying to cast spells and deal with dragons and mermaids?
Yeah, so that's another thing. So also, did you think, before we move on, did you think it was left field? It kind of felt like it came out of nowhere when they were like, the Triwizard Tournament, or do you just were like, well, whatever?
No, it was definitely left field. It was definitely just a manufactured plot device. It didn't feel natural. I'll also say, out of the 3 trials, with the first one being dragons, the second one being surviving killer mermaids.
Mermaids, I love mermaids.
And the third one being a maze with, I was expecting the maze to be monster filled. I was expecting it to be super lethal. That seemed like the littlest threat out of the three of them. Dumbledore's like, the threat is you in here. You will change. You will become a different person. And they were just like scared kids running around a dark maze, and sometimes the branches attacked them. And it turned out that it was fake Mad-Eye Moody who put a spell on Victor.
Yeah, made him blind, I think.
No, yeah, just disoriented him to make him attack the other kids.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was pretty straightforward compared to nearly drowning in a mermaid lake and nearly burning to death by a dragon.
Well, in the Mermaid Lake, they had to save people who were down there, and Harry ended up saving one of the other contestants' person because she got disqualified or whatever. So there's two things I want to talk about. So the dragon one, first of all, why is that the first one? That feels like it should be the last one. But he gets that golden egg, and then the way that he figures out what it says, and that whole scene, and then that second one where he is in the lake and he has the transformation into like the fish version of Harry. Yeah, I just want to talk about those two things. So the first trial is dragons, which is like, wow, this is like, this feels like it should be the last one. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. The thing is that Harry has to get this golden egg away from the dragon, and then that egg has a clue in it that will tell him like what's the next challenge. So he gets the egg and he opens it and it makes this horrible screeching sound, and he's like, great. And then I think he doesn't really know what to do with it until Cedric's like, hey, you should take a bath with it, as trying to help him out, wink wink. And so so the bathroom's back. The bathroom has a significant locations back, and Moaning Myrtle's back. But he goes into the bathroom, and it's just like it's like a communal tub, I think. Did you realize that? Yes,
but that just all sorts of bad judgment on the writing.
Yeah, so Moaning Myrtle, first of all, he's in the tub, so pretty sure he is.
Yep.
And Moaning Myrtle, who's a ghost, I understand, but she's like, ooh, like all up on him. And I'm like, he's supposed to be 14 in this movie. Gross. But also, like the design of the tub in there is like in the middle of the floor where like the sinks and the stalls are around him. So it's like, you just take a bath in the middle of one of the public restrooms, and it looks like a huge bath, like a hot tub almost, but like a bath. Could you imagine? Will's just shaking his head. That, to me, I'm like, that just, everything about this scene makes me feel weird.
But also, it's like, hey, you see an egg? How are we going to solve this? Oh, I know. Put it underwater?
Well, I know
that's what Cedric said, but why?
So we found out later that David Tennant's character, disguised as Mad-Eyed Moody, hinted that to Cedric. He was trying to get Harry to the end of the tournament. So his whole goal was to get Harry to the end of the tournament because he gets transported to Voldemort. That was his whole thing. So he's the one who plants the idea in Cedric's head. But then it says in the clue that it's like it takes an hour or so for them to find what they need to find underwater. And he's like, well, how do I breathe underwater for an hour? And he's like researching. And then David Tennant, aka Mad-Eye Moody, comes up to him and is like, hey, you should talk to Neville Longbottom, who's like super into, herbs and herbology. And Neville Longbottom also has this book that he was just given by Mad-Eye Moody, also the villain in the situation, that tells him about gillyweed, which in this universe, when you eat it and go into water, turns you into a amphibious person. But you want to talk about your reaction? Because to me, Harry's feet become fins, and he has like webbed fingers and gills, but like they're flesh colored appendages. They're like they're not like fish fins. They're like skin fins, and it made me highly uncomfortable.
It didn't bother me that much. Because at this point, I'm just kind of hardened. I mean, we're 4 movies in. I've seen a man turn into a werewolf, sorry. I have seen...
and a wolf, and a dog.
I saw a man turn into a rat. I have seen a girl turn into a cat. At this point, I'm kind of like...
Boy into fish? Fish boy?
Fish boy, yeah,
Oh, and then Victor Crumb, somehow becomes part shark.
Yeah, and that looked just like an episode of Animorphs.
He transforms back. Do you remember?
Yeah, it's like in between stage. Like there was a point where he had Victor Crumb's head, but it was in the shape of a shark, and it was just skin colored, and his whole face was elongated like a shark. It was very frightening for about 5 seconds.
Yeah, right. So that part grossed me out, but another part that grossed me out, after they get to the end of the tournament, they grab the cup or whatever it's called, the Goblet of Fire, and it's actually a port key, which we learn in this universe is another way to magically transport somewhere, and they get transported to Voldemort, and Voldemort is a ugly baby, like a demon baby, and Wormtail actually kills Cedric. He kills him like right away. He's like just dead. Oh, we didn't even talk about the curses. They learned about the 3 unforgivable curses.
Honestly, yeah, it's important, but not really, in a sense. Like, you could take the lesson about curses out of the movie, and you could at least put together that these, whatever the spells they're using, are deadly. And that's all you need. You don't need a 10-minute segment, 15-minute segment on what these curses are. It's, as of right now, it's completely useless information.
I'm going to go over them anyway, just so that we know what we're talking about, because I have a feeling they're going to come up later. One of them is, I forget what it's called, but it's a curse that you like puppet another person or make them do what you want them to do. The other one is like a continuous torture. It kind of reminds me of Jane's power from the Volturi from Twilight, where it's like they are constantly in like a pain and torture that they can't escape. The third one, which I do know, Avada Kedavra, is the killing curse, which is the one that Harry survived. That was the one that Voldemort tried to use on him, which goes into my point I was going to make about the actual like good line I liked in this film. Gosh, I just realized I'm going to have to tell you the gross part first, and then we'll get into the good part. When Voldemort transforms, it is scary in a way that it's not like scary that like the movie meant for it to be scary, but it's like so gross. There's this one part where like the little baby Voldemort, so they make this potion literally in a cauldron with Harry's blood and everything like that. And then Wormtail takes little nasty white baby Voldemort and just drops him into this gunky, goopy soup. And it's like you see his body go in, and it's like, oh, that looked horrible. And then his body arises, and it's all like deformed and skinny and like naked. It's like he forms and forms and forms, and then he becomes Ralph Fiennes. Not Ralph Fiennes, but like
Academy nominated actor Ralph Fiennes.
Ralph Fiennes. But no, he becomes Voldemort, played by Ralph Fiennes, and this is the first time he's ever played Voldemort. So the last times we've seen him, it was a different actor, but he's now officially Voldemort in these movies. He has clothes, thank God. Thank the Lord. But at this time, when he's telling Harry what really happened that night when he survived the killing curse, and he says, "How would I to know that when your mother gave up her life for yours, that act of love would have been stronger than any magic?" And he calls it was the old magic. It's interesting. He calls it old magic in this universe. It's like the power that existed before power was love and sacrifice, which is Christian. This idea that, because God is love, and that type of love to be considered the real power and to be considered like to overcome everything else, and that's very fairy tale-ish, like in a way where it's like, oh, true love overcame. But in this instance, Voldemort openly admits that the love that led to the sacrifice, like a mother's love for the child, was more powerful than any of the most powerful magic in their world. And I felt like that really spoke to me, and so it was a really big check mark for me. Ironically, coming from Voldemort. I didn't know if you picked up on that or if you felt that way.
Honestly, I took a point off for that, and it's because it sounds strongly like Chronicles of Narnia about the deep magic, which was started at creation of Narnia and before. And again, if you watch, just take a minute, pause our podcast, go put on The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe movie, then come back, and then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. That Aslan speaks about this deep magic that is the fibrous magic of the world that keeps everything together, and that was there before the world.
And in Christianity, what C.S. Lewis is really saying is that is God's love and His word, like His will, and
it's stronger than the witch's. It's stronger than the witch's magic that plunges Narnia into an era of cold and evil.
And in our world, in reality, like a mother's love for her child is a reflection of that fibrous, fundamental love of God that is the building block of our universe and our existence. So they acknowledge in this film that, like, because she loved her son, because in a way that's a picture of God's love, because he says that those who lay down their life for their friends, like that's picturing. You're like shaking your head like it's Narnia, and I'm like, I thought about that.
Aslan sacrificing himself
on the stone table
for Edmund meant that he would turn back the clock and break the curse and rise again.
And Susan and Lucy are there, and they're like, how did you do this? And he's like, the witch did not know the true power that was before. He says the same thing, just much more direct.
And also much more eloquent and beautiful.
Because it's Aslan, okay?
Because it's C.S. Lewis, okay? It's one of the greatest authors of the last 100 years.
Yeah, it is still true, though. It is still a truth. And so I liked that they acknowledged that in the film. And that even the way he, it's Ray Fiennes, but the way he delivered the line, I was like, that was okay. That was legit. It came right after that really gross transformation scene. And then, did you have another point? Can you let me tell you the things I have written down on here?
No, I don't have any other points. I kind of got my spiel out. I mean, it's the same thing about how does magic work? How does it not work? I mean, now that magic can be usurped by love, is love, how does that work? How does potions work in this universe? Can potions overpower magic? What's more powerful, a potion that's created by a wizard or a spell? There's just, again, we play this game every single movie. How does the magic work? And then every movie, there's some kind of element of the magic that is not explained, that they just kind of use. So it is becoming the magic in itself in these movies is the Deus Ex Machina. It is the tool that you can use whenever they want, and magic fixes the situation. Magic causes the problem. Magic is the tool. Magic is the means of things happening, and there's no real guide system to what it can and can't do. And so because of that, it can do anything that the author needs it to do.
I have written down here, so Harry does inform Dumbledore of his dream at some point. So he is starting to be like, hey, maybe I need to tell some people. Oh yeah, also this was the movie where he zapped his memories out and put it in the bowl, right?
Yeah, it looked like he had a noodle coming out of his brain.
Noodle. He's like, just take this and put it in there.
But he wasn't forgetting the thought. He was putting it into the cauldron to rewatch it.
I have a record about all the things he's experienced. You guys, at this point, he's 200 years old, maybe older. So I'm like, yeah, I mean, if you maybe need help. He just didn't want to be basic and have a journal. He's like, no, I gotta have this. But Harry does start actually telling information. But at the end of the movie, Harry sees people that he knows, like Lucius Malfoy, admit that he serves Voldemort. We do not see him tell anyone that he saw that. So is this going to be mentioned? Is he going to or are we going to go back into the really bad habit of not telling useful information to the people they need to know? So that's a question that we will find in the next movie, hopefully. And then the last thing we can talk about, this is the first death in the whole series, Cedric Diggory. So just a character we've just been introduced to in this film, but it's the first time a character has died. How do you feel that the series handled it? How do you feel that?
I mean, it was you had to sit through the whole movie to get there. And what I mean by sit through is you got to know the character a little bit. You got to have dialogue. You got to have relationships built. So there is some value to it. I am always a proponent of, if you are going to kill a character in a fictional novel or story, you have to make it mean something. You have to have value or worth to it, or it is just for shock value. Shock value deaths do not do anything but give momentary eyes to a product. What I would have done is I would have introduced him in
maybe
the
last movie,
the movie before, have a competitive nature with it, since he's obviously at Hogwarts, have a competitive nature with it, have Harry is competing against him for something, and then this movie they develop a friendship, and so Harry is now making a new friend outside of his little circle, and that person, because he's close to Harry, gets wrapped up in the Voldemort stuff, and that would have added an emotional connection, as well as can Harry trust anybody else? If Harry brings in anybody else to his circle, will they suffer,
or will he lose them?
Right,
because it does up the stakes. A character has been killed now, and that makes it so much more real in a way. Harry has seen that what he's up against is real, with real consequences that are lasting. And now that Voldemort's officially back, that's what Hermione says at the end. She's like, everything's going to be different now, because technically they're in war. They're great, now we got to be on high alert all the time. But it does give us a sense of harsh reality as these characters are growing up, and I guess that we are technically supposed to be growing up with them, of okay, this is something that's super serious, and that literally life or death. In the first couple of movies, we played with the idea, there's times Harry has gotten in sticky situations and he could have died, but this time it's a person was murdered, and now we have to accept that other people are not safe anymore from plot armor, but also that, like you said, Harry's if I am going to continue to fight, I might lose people who are close to me, and it might be because he feels guilty about, because if he didn't say to Cedric, hey, let's take the cup together, Cedric would have never gone there and he would have died. I bet Harry feels guilty about that. And I know it comes up later because like I know that Cedric's death is important. It's not something that just is something that floats away, or it's like, oh, it happened and we're gonna just let it pass by. I know it does have everlasting effects on the characters, especially Harry. So that is another point for it, because like you said, like if you are going to kill a character, have it be meaningful, have it do something important for your story, but don't just, unless it's like, a slasher movie, but
Yeah, and I'll give an example. It's weird. So like in the Star Wars universe, in episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and episode 4, The New Hope, both movies feature character deaths, Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi. But you don't get to know those characters beyond one movie. Okay, what I mean by that for the Obi-Wan one is when you're first introduced to this character in A New Hope, if you're watching it in timeline order when it's released, you don't get to know this character, but his death is literally fundamental in constructing the rest of the movies. Like everything else happens because he dies. And after Qui-Gon Jinn dies, the whole framework of the next two movies after that is a kind of what if scenario of, would he have done this differently? Was this what he would have wanted? All these things. I'm not going to get into the plot of Star Wars, but the deaths are literally pivotal, shifting catalyst points to moving forward. And it's yet to be seen, because we've not seen anything further, if Cedric will just be another casualty in the war, or will be a emotional linchpin of things being different, or is it just the first of many? There's a thought process behind that. If it's the first of many, then he's going to be forgotten. If his death becomes a calling card, if his death becomes the rallying cry of the wizards to finally get their act together, then there's something to that. And I think there's an importance to it too. If you're going to incorporate death into your fiction, treat it like a death would be in reality, where things change. Things are now different because of this, and now people will change because of it, and things will pivot differently going forward.
Well, I think it will. I think it is that when going forward. So the next film we got is The Order of the Phoenix. No. Yes, it's The Order of the Phoenix, and then it's Half-Blood Prince, and then it's the Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2. So we'll find out in the next movie how Cedric Diggory's death affects Harry and the story at large and the characters. So we really need to sign off. Thanks for listening, and hope you tune in next time to hear our hot takes on the 5th Harry Potter movie. And this has been Two Christians Watch. I am Hannah.
I'm Will.
Okay, bye guys.